Thank you all for coming into another evening of relaxing short stories. I have two for you this evening. First one is called 10 Years of Space, as written by a K. Antonio. He comes to me in pieces as I watch the stillness of space, envisioning new constellations in the array of unrecognized stars. I trace the sparks of light with my finger, connecting the dots and smudging the glass as a result. How many stars do you think there are in space? I imagine him asking. Can there really be others there as big or even bigger than the sun? I always admired his genuine curiosity, how he viewed things with a particular interest, how he saw me. He was the one that organized our sleepovers, the one that nudged me to sign up for after school activities, such as the chemistry club and robotics team. Can you build me a mechanical arm that'll change the channels on the TV remote so that I don't have to? He once asked sarcastically. How about a drone that we can use to spy inside the girls' locker room, huh? Wouldn't that be neat? When we were kids, he would give me piggyback rides and run with me through the sprinklers across watery arches with captured rainbows. We'd go back home. My mother would scold us while our shivering bodies shared a single towel. And in the end, he'd shine me a blue lipped smile with crooked teeth. That was fun, wasn't it? Our childhood adventures involved trips to the public pool, wet t shirts and popsicles, mucking up our fingers in the August sun. He'd take me to his baseball team's practices, and I'd watch him bat while I built rovers and complex constructs out of Legos in the bleachers. Booyah, he'd shout after a home run. I'd cheer or clap, and then he'd always gleam and say the same thing. It's going, gone. Kiss that puppy goodbye. A few years later, our tastes matured, slipping our summers into memories and substituting them for leather jackets and motorcycle rides on empty freeways. He and I would stop on the roadsides by green fields that looked blue under the night sky. We'd sit under the blanket of stars and watch the moon while dreaming up our futures after high school. I'm going to apply for a sports scholarship and get the fuck out of this town, he'd always say. How about you? I don't know, I shrugged. Maybe I'll go work with my dad as an apprentice at his accounting firm. What? Come on, man. You've got to apply for a university too. You're a freaking brainiac. I'm sure you could get into any school. Out of the bay window, I see the lunar triplets Persephone, Agilia, and Thalia dancing around what the New Worlds Association likes to call Undine, the flooded blue planet, equivalent in size to Jupiter, that I've been studying for what would be measured on planet Earth as 8 months. I was like, the journey to this specific star system took 4 years. The rest of the crew and I have enough resources to last another 16 Earth months. By then, we'll have made a substantial dent in our research. Our food, water, fuel, along with our tolerance for the others, will have depleted, and we'll go into a cryosleep for our return. A decade. That's how long we've been apart. So you'll be asleep, frozen in a coffin for 8 years? I assured him it was completely safe, that I wouldn't die in transport. But that doesn't mean you'll come back looking almost the same age as when you left? Won't you be technically younger than me? I think about his current age, and how it's already been more than 4 years, and how unfair it must have seemed to him that he'd miss me the entirety of all that elapsed time, while I would be sleeping almost all the years away, except for 2. Sometimes I wonder if he tells his other friends and his customers about me. My buddy's up in space, I imagine him saying. What's he doing up there? He's researching a new planet, someplace better than this shithole we're destroying. Undyne registers an oxygen signature similar to Europa and the planet Earth. The oceanic surface covering the entire planet could host a form of phytoplankton, or an entirely new plant species capable of producing oxygen as a byproduct of their natural photosynthetic process. In other words, Undyne could, in theory, host life. If I'm being honest with myself, sometimes I feel that my role on this ship isn't as relevant as the other crew members' works. That perhaps what I'm doing isn't as impacting, that it's less exciting. I'm not spacewalking or trying to merge chemical compounds under zero gravity conditions. I barely passed the physical exam, and my score on the simulation emergency program ranked me as the 5th in command if anything were to happen to our pilot or the others of my crew. One second. So what? He'd fire. You'll still be one of the few guys a part of the human race to have ever gone into space. You'll still have broken records, be mentioned in the history books. You'll have gone places no one has ever been to. It was always like him to see the bright side in situations. When he didn't get his full ride to college, he applied for the town's undergraduate program at the local college. Don't worry, man. I'm still going to make it back and get myself out of this place. When he couldn't juggle both his academic life and work to help his folks pay the bills, he still didn't crumble under all the pressure. I'll take a break this semester. And then on the next one, I'll go back. He never returned to school to finish his undergrad. Maybe college just isn't for me. He opted. He continued working, helping out his folks, and eventually went to and finished trade school. I'm thinking about opening up a restaurant, he told me a few years ago. What about you? What are you thinking about doing with your life, Mr. Big Shot? I'm a certified scientist. I laughed at his remark. I don't know, I answered. I guess I could teach or go for my PhD. What? But you just finished school. Now you're thinking about going back, he commented, while scratching his beard. He tugged on the bill of his baseball cap and shook his head in disapproval. You're nuts, man. Yeah, and what do you think I should do? If I were as wicked smart as you, I'd go to the moon. Scientists are some sort of professionals that, depending on their branch of specialization, are often courted by big money tech companies and international organizations. He heard about a space program from one of his faithful customers, a man that worked as a research assistant for the state university, who always ordered a bear claw with a large cup of coffee and a BLT for the road. He told me how the New Worlds Association was looking for people to blast off. In his own words, The money I'd receive would leave me set for life. He was the one that showed me the association's website. It says here you have to send them a paper or something explaining your qualifications, along with an idea for a project applicable in space, highlighting a specific area of research. Does that sound like something you could do? Huh? I was distracted at first by the site's banner. A rocket blasting off to the moon, pointing like an arrowhead to the unknown. I think so, I answered, correcting myself. But what if I get accepted? That's what I should have asked. But what if they don't think I'm qualified enough? What if I'm rejected? Then they're crazy, he snapped back. You're the most intelligent person I know. No way they'd reject you. I pitched him my project several times, letting him serve as my judge and jury. The idea was simple: build a compact, remote operated device that could probe the oceanic planet of Undine. Do you mean like a robotic hand? Exactly. Think of it as a hand that's also a drone, I said. A machine that could enter the planet and try and collect data on whether there are any living organisms present in the planet's aquatic terrain or not. If the scan is positive, I'll extract several samples for me and for the crew. Some of these samples can undergo analysis and testing while in space. Others can be stored in a controlled environment and transported back home with us. He stared at me for a few seconds, his eyes wide, his mouth nearly dangling from his jaw like a bell. So what do you think? I think you're going into space. The admiration in his eyes was stunning, and he had me gleaming like a young boy. Who knows? Maybe we'll even stop at the moon on our return. The probe, Michelangelo, named by myself, will enter Undine's domain in approximately 2 weeks. From our current distance, the device's descent will take anywhere from 2 to 3 days. That's when my mission will reach its zenith, and when things could get dicey. I'll have to watch over Michelangelo as if it's a newborn child learning to swim. I'll have to frequently analyze Undine's tidal patterns and climate while observing the incoming data as soon as Michelangelo departs from the spacecraft. Do you think Michelangelo will make it out of that place in one piece? He asked, with a worried expression as if the probe was a living creature, a pet cat or dog. I think so. I'm working with a pretty big budget, and it'll be made exclusively for the mission. Knowing you, you'll be the one to build him. I'm sure it'll be great. No, Michelangelo will be better than great. He'll be perfect. I'm glad one of us is feeling confident, I returned, leaning back into his sofa. He plopped himself right beside me, threw his arm over my neck, and pulled me into his orbit with such a savagery that we ended up rolling onto the floor. He flipped himself over, partially resting his chest over mine. Don't be so hard on yourself. I believe in you. I'll miss you. You know that, right? I gushed. We hadn't talked about the possibility of my leaving, camouflaging the void that would be left behind with excitement and speculation. My eyes at that moment reddened, burned like they always do whenever I think of him. Hey, it'll be a good opportunity for you, won't it? You'll be doing something you're good at, something that can really help everyone back here on Earth. On board the spaceship, there's a mechanic who's responsible for repairs and keeping the ship functioning, who sometimes also gets the chance to soar like an acrobat in the depths of space. We have a medic doing research on the proliferation of diseases under low gravity conditions. They all sound like show-offs, that's what. There's also a physicist and a botanist. Our pilot's one of the few men to have traveled multiple times to the moon and Mars, as well as a skilled photographer who captured high-definition photos of cosmic dust clouds. And then there's me, a certified scientist, as he'd like to say. A certified scientist who won himself a trip into space. Weeks before my leave, we were lying close to one another in a field of dark blue grass. "You're going to do big things up there," he said. He turned and shined me his crooked smile. "And when you get back, everyone's going to know your name." You know, I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm much more interested in seeing the planet with 3 moons. I swear, man, only you. Everyone here talks about their projects. Comments on how much they miss their family. Our captain left his wife 3 months pregnant back home. Our mechanic and our medic, 2 kids each. When they turn to me and ask if I've left anything important behind, the first person that comes to mind isn't my mother or my father, or a house or a car. It's him. I'm the quiet one up here. Space is already deathly silent, but it and I enter into staring contests with each other through the bay windows. My eyes versus Undyne's 3 moons. I watch them, the triplets that grace the aquatic planet, drawing up to conclusions as to what might occur if one of the lunar bodies were to simply explode. Obviously, there'd be no sound, but I'd watch the floating remnants, mesmerized by the rubble, as if catching the sight of fallen snow. In this particular star system, aside from all the planets and moons spread out across the field of space, there's also a bright celestial body, similar to the sun back home. The lone star is distant from everything, the same way that I'm years away from my planet, and from the only person more important to me than anything in the whole universe. "How do you think things will be like once I'm back?" I asked him before I left for my physical and mental training. "What do you mean?" he returned. "Will we still be—" "You're kidding, right? Come on, I know you're smarter than that." He hugged me, and for a moment I wish he had begged me not to go. I considered the idea of staying, of resisting the money, and even the chance to see the moon. "Promise me you'll be here when I get back." "I wouldn't dream of leaving this place without you. I'll be here waiting for you. Me and this planet with nothing but a single moon." At times I question myself. What's so great about a planet that's essentially all water and almost no detectable land? And I hear him saying how we could build floating houses or architectural structures like in the Maldives. Or we can bring out a boat from Earth and just like Noah's Ark, spend our days searching the blue world for a paradise island. Who knows? Maybe we could live underwater in domes like the Atlanteans. I'll nod and chuckle to myself, say sure, as if it's all so simple. I'll picture us both on Undyne, drifting together in its never ending pool. He and I in our private world, where we'll swim in our t shirts and play with Michelangelo. Before I left, he gave me an envelope. Open it only once you're far away from Earth. It's because of what he wrote that I know I'll return. That I'll tell him everything, from what I saw to what I dreamt. I'll say how much I remembered and how much I missed him. I'll repeat the exact verse he wrote at the end of his letter. 3 words, more significant to me than Undyne and its 3 moons. That is the story 10 Years of Space, as written by K. Antonio. Take a short break so I can grab a quick drink of water. As I know there is water somewhere behind me. Yeah, can I have some? Thank you. My wife is laughing at me as I fail to get the water bottle close to my mouth. Thank you. Pretty much. That's what that is. All right. Oh, I see another person here. Howdy, Zero. I think he was a friend. Did I miss anybody else that came in? Is Juliet almost done?
Yeah, she's getting there.
Okay. All right. Ooh. Should not shake your head with a VR headset on. That kind of felt weird. All right, we shall. Yeah, no, that's probably even worse. With my bones, that would not end well. All right, on to the next story. This one is simply called The Desk. It's written by Oliver Skywolf. That's an awesome name, by the way. The child's bleary eyes glazed at pristine walls. The room was bright and had no windows, only a door. She had no recollection of why she was there. The place looked different than her room at the hospital. The girl stood up, ambled to the door, and then left. She stepped into a long hall and felt an opalescent aura surround her. Hollow tones echoed from her footsteps as she wandered. Many doors lined the hall, but she did not bother trying to open them. Her convoluted path continued, yet she remained tranquil. She felt like this was just a dream. The girl sensed a faint voice in her head as she walked. A woman speaking, or perhaps praying. A familiar person she was used to hearing from her mother. The voice was soothing, but had a trembling weakness, fading with each step the little girl took until she could no longer hear it. After searching across halls, a clicking noise reverberated from afar, a rapid tapping of some sort. The child followed the distant sound as she drifted past more rooms, hoping that someone would be around to help her. The clicking became distinguishable as she ventured further. It casted a clarity and began to sound more like mechanical workings. "Hello?" the girl shouted out. The girl trailed the noise until she stumbled upon a room with an open door. The cursory beat of the clicks were coming from inside. She took a peek, nervous of what she may find. Inside, she saw a man sitting at a desk. Her eyes widened. The man's back was facing her, and it looked like he was typing. The girl took a few steps towards him, working up the courage to speak. His typing slowed down. The man turned his face towards her as he took his hands off the typewriter. He saw the girl and then frowned. "Where am I?" the girl asked. She stared at the man, examining him. She noticed how bare his room was. Only a desk, a chair, and a typewriter. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or worried. The man sighed at the sight of her. "You are not supposed to be here yet," he said. He stood from his chair and gave a look of deep thought. "I'll make sure you get back home. Now is not your time." "Time for what?" the little girl asked. "You know where I live?" "Don't worry," the man said as he sat back down and continued typing. The girl walked towards him, observing his work in progress. "What are you doing? Who are you?" "You sure ask a lot of questions," the man said, his hands busy on the machine. "Is this your home? Why is it empty? What are you doing?" the girl asked again. The man stopped typing. "I create things," he said, only answering the last of her questions. "Things, people, worlds. I pour them out on this machine, and they get created." He tried to explain everything all at once to prevent any more questions from the child. The girl was still puzzled. She leaned in and studied the typewriter. It was big and bulky. Its black metal glistened. She never saw anything like it, and had no clue about what the man meant by creating things with it. "I just have to be deliberate with what I put on here," the man said. "Deliberate?" "It means I have to be careful, especially with what I create." "You can make anything." "Not anything, but most things," the man said. He looked at the girl, indicating an interest in the conversation. "You got any ideas? I can show you some examples of what I do. Just something fun before I send you on your way home." The girl froze, unsure of what he meant. The man clarified. "Is there anything you'd want to see created? Anything you're interested in?" he asked, hoping to spark curiosity. The girl was still thinking. "Can you make dinosaurs?" she asked. "I've made dinosaurs before," the man replied. "Do you want to see them come to life?" Yes." The little girl's initial disorientation was replaced with newfound elation. "Very well. You'll like this." The man swung back to his desk and tapped the side of his machine. The previous sheet of paper magically replaced with a new one. He hit the keys in a rapid motion. "Look toward that empty space," he said as he gestured toward the end of the room. A glow illuminated the area, and it's what the girl saw next that shocked her. What was once a blank section in the room transformed into a portal's view of a vast world, with dinosaurs roaming a lush land. The girl could smell fresh air around her as she felt vibrations on the ground. She witnessed prehistoric giants dominating a world created by the man typing beside her. "What do you think?" he asked. The man halted his session as the girl was captivated by what she saw. "You really made them alive?" "Yes, that's what I do," he said. "I create life." The man smiled. "Anything else you'd like to see?" For the next several minutes, he showed the girl more glimpses of his creations. He gave her more shots at bringing her ideas to life. In just a short amount of time, she called out many scenarios and concepts that her imagination could come up with, and the man created it for her. Among these worlds, the girl's mind lit up in bunches, no longer worried or scared for a moment, just as kids are when their dreams take them to fantasy lands. It was a joy for the girl, and a pleasant break from the man's monotonous schedule. However, it wasn't long enough until the girl mentioned something that put a stop to the creations. The girl had one more big request for the man. "How about we make a world where everyone is happy?" she said with excitement. The man paused and looked grim. He touched the coldness of his typewriter and expressed a wishful look on his face. The girl stared, confused with his discomforted expression. "Unfortunately, that is not one of the few things I can make happen," the man said. He looked at her with empty eyes. "Why not? You made all the other stuff." The girl looked at the empty space, expecting transportation into a new world, but the man didn't type. The blankness remained. "I've tried many times," he explained. "Whenever I create people with a goal for all to be happy, something mysterious causes some individuals and groups to change." "Mysterious?" the girl asked. "There seems to be something out of my control that causes bad things to happen," the man replied. He backed his chairs from the desk and closed his eyes as he ruminated. "It's not fair." The girl was disappointed. "I thought you create everything," she said. The room felt hollow, and the girl began to notice subtle echoes when she spoke. "I create as many good things as I can, but bad things still find their way in." The man looked at the girl and hesitated before explaining further. "Sometimes I think there's someone just like me out there, doing the same as I, except with malicious intent. Wherever it is, it sleeps into my words, regardless of how perfect I try to make them." "Is that why my mom and dad warn me about bad people?" the girl asked, remembering her parents. Her mind was falling back to reality, thinking of how much her family was missing her right now, wherever they were. "Yes, your world has its dangers and its negatives," the man said. "You must always be careful. But remember, there's also a lot of wonder and beauty and miraculous moments around you as well. The lens in which you see your world will determine how you live your life. Lens? Like a camera? The girl asked. No, the man laughed, and startled her with his sudden glee. Your perspective. Everyone sees the world differently. You have to see the good things that are there. A lot of people fail to see it. The man continued. Even when bad things happen, always think of the positives. I see people call this a cliche all the time, yet I have witnessed people go through horrible experiences and still overcome it and find their happinesses. He stopped and looked at the girl's eyes. The man realized this conversation may have been too deep for such a little girl to comprehend. But the inquisitive look in her eye and body language indicated she genuinely cared about the topic. He decided to continue. Just like I have things out of my control, you'll face things you can't control too. The man stood behind the girl and leaned towards her. But you'll always be able to decide how you react. What if I get angry? The girl asked. I see people angry a lot. It depends. Being angry is okay. It doesn't always mean you're being bad. The man elaborated. There are no bad emotions, just bad reactions to an emotion. Some people use anger to fuel positive things. They make changes and improvements to impact what it is they're angry about. But others use anger to do bad things. The man gave a shrug. I get it. The girl stood still, understanding but not knowing how to fully respond. The man seemed it was the right time to pause and let her thoughts soak it all in. You miss your parents, don't you? The man noticed the look of longing on her face. Don't worry. Like I said earlier, I'll be sending you home soon. And your mom and dad will be happy to see you wake up. Wake up? The girl saw this as a confirmation that she was dreaming. The man smiled, his hands on his hips, as he caught himself a bit exhausted at everything. She smiled back at him. The man sat back down and faced his typewriter. I'll send you home now. He loaded a new sheet of paper. You weren't meant to be here today. I'll see you when the time is right. Maybe we can create more dinosaurs, he said with a wink. He tapped away at the typewriter keys as the girl watched the room glow. Then she looked at him one last time. Don't forget to find the good things. They'll always be around. I promise, he said to her delicately. The glowing grew as he typed. You won't remember much of me, but when you get back home, you'll remember this conversation, one way or another. The girl was overwhelmed by the intense glare of the room. She began to hear the soothing voice again, her mother's words entering her ears. I hope to see you again, the girl exclaimed to the man as she felt consumed by the bright light. The man continued typing as he wrote one last sentence, while a radiant glimmer filled the room. Don't worry, we'll meet again, the man said with one last smile. Then the girl was gone. Once he hit the final key on the typewriter, the man sat alone in silence for a few minutes, dazed in a somber serenity. Then he walked away as he needed a break from the desk. That is the story called The Desk, is written by Oliver Skywolf. And I see even more people. No. The stories are over. I wanted to say thank you all for coming out and enjoying. Hopefully they were soothing and relaxing for all, as is the intent. Stop recording.